After 5 years in the pros, the bright promise of Peyton Manning had been marred by lapses in judgment and poor performances in the postseason. Then, with a 4-0 start in 2003, the Colts quarterback and his teammates came under a withering attack on a warm Monday evening in October.
The way the Colts play, when they look bad, they look horrible.
They're getting killed in Tampa, and it's just not even close. And to compound everything else, the world is watching on Monday Night Football.
We're thinking, this is one of the great defenses of all time. Look what they're doing.
35-14 with, I think, 3:50 to go. It didn't look good. I remember just being downright angry. We've just laid a big egg out here and just said, well, we're going to keep firing.
And then pretty soon, here comes Peyton Manning. And it's boom, boom. Look what Peyton Manning's doing.
And finding the open man, it's Harrison for the touchdown.
You can kind of see the momentum turn to Peyton and the Colts.
Manning deep and out in front, and catching it is Harrison. He's down to the 5-yard line.
And I got on the phone and started calling people and saying, can you believe this? Are you watching this? And everybody's going to sleep.
For those who stayed tuned to their sets, Manning put on an aerial show that culminated with the Colts becoming the first NFL team ever to overcome a 21-point deficit with 4 minutes left in regulation. They won 38-35 in overtime.
How crazy is this? How crazy?
That comeback was just spectacular. I mean, there was no one else that could have done that other than Peyton Manning.
And with that, it became, you know, Peyton Manning may be at a different level than everybody else.
I think if you ask anyone in that locker room, anyone in the huddle with him, they will say that he's a guy that can grab his team by the throat and take it along with him. And there's rare performers that can do that.
Throwing for almost 30,000 yards in his first 7 pro seasons and making history with 49 touchdown passes in 2004, Manning has stormed the NFL with a fearless passion.
His football IQ has to be off the charts, and his ability to make a decision in a matter of moments, I think, is a gift.
I've never really seen anyone like Peyton that puts that much in on the field and off the field.
He is compulsive, obsessive when it comes to the game of football and his preparation. He might lose a game because he throws a bad ball. He won't lose a game because he hasn't done everything to get himself mentally ready to go.
He's been able to take that obsessiveness and channel it in a direction that has made him the best at what he does. Rather than cleaning his sink 100 times a day, he's going to sit there and watch film until he figures out something that he can gain an advantage on.
He'll study film from 7 in the morning until 11 at night, 7 days a week if necessary. He's consumed by preparation.
Yeah, I remember one time when he was at the University of Tennessee, he showed up in his truck with this huge garbage bag. It was tapes that Peyton would take back to his apartment, study.
He has a fear of being unprepared. That fear makes him overwork and overanalyze. And I don't care whether it was math homework in 7th grade or preparing for a playoff game. He wants to get it right.
I'm a preparation freak. I've never been embarrassed about that. I feel so accountable and responsible to so many people. I feel guilty if I haven't prepared for the situation.
He wants to win every game, and not only win the game, but not throw an incomplete pass, not have anything go wrong in the game. And he can pick apart games that we've scored 50 points. He still feels bad about certain things.
I think he expects the world from himself, and he expects the same from his teammates. He's always been a perfectionist.
He was tough on him, especially in high school. Sometimes he didn't quite understand why other people weren't as good as he was.
I've tried to counsel with him a little bit about that some people react to things different, and some people have their own ways of dealing with a loss and with disappointment. And I'll be honest with you, he has a little problem with people who get over it real quick.
I think he had to remind Peyton that some guys aren't taking this as serious as you are, and you don't necessarily need to alienate them and make them mad. Yelling and screaming at them is not always the best method.
For as nice as he is, as sweet a guy as he can be a tough son of a bitch.
He wants things to be perfect, and at times when they're not, he comes down on guys pretty hard, but it's not always reciprocal, you know. He doesn't like guys, you know, challenging him on occasion.
In practice, he gave me the motion shift to come in. I was like, no, that's not right. He's like, it is right. So after practice, he came to me and said, listen, if I tell you it's Easter, you better hide eggs. So from that point on, I let him be in charge. If he told me to go on motion, even if I knew it was wrong, I was still going to do it wrong and just let him be wrong.
You have to know that going in, that, you know, whether you have an opinion or not, his opinion is right.
Peyton's trying to make everybody better, and if you don't like that or don't understand where he's coming from, you know, I think a lot of guys can kind of grow apart from Peyton.
He wants to win, and everybody see that he wants to win. When you see the main man doing all that, you can't help but follow suit. Everybody got to do it.
I think the competitive drive that we talk about with him is all relevant to the way he was brought up. He was watching his dad as one of the premier quarterbacks in the league. That's the level Peyton Manning was going to live.
Hey, who's your favorite football player, then?
My dad.
Your dad's your favorite football player, too? Well, you're on the right track. You're going to be a football player when you grow up?
Mm-hmm.
Before Peyton, there was another Manning quarterback named Archie.
Peyton's whole life's pattern is after his dad. And his dad is a very conscientious, driven human being. That's how Peyton thinks his life should be led, too.
I've never seen an athlete that stands in awe of his father the way Peyton Manning does.
Peyton's not bow-legged, but when he would go to the line of scrimmage as a kid, he would walk up to the line bow-legged because Archie was bow-legged a little bit. That's what he would do because he was so close to his dad and he wanted to emulate him.
Even if he had a choice, Peyton could not have picked a worthier role model than the star quarterback from Ole Miss. Off the field and on it, Archie Manning exemplified a special breed of manhood revered in the South.
The Manning name it's almost like a Confederate war hero. You know, you expect to drive into every little town and see a monument of the guy in a traffic circle. He was that big. It's amazing how much they love him.
He was just the nicest guy and very humble, and of course a good quarterback, a lot of fun to watch. People just jumped on that bandwagon that, you know, it's called Archie's Army. It was just something unbelievable to see.
Playing with fire and flair, Archie Manning threw for 31 touchdowns and ran for 25 over 3 seasons. But Ole Miss never finished first in the SEC. In January of 1971, he was drafted with the 2nd overall pick by New Orleans, where he and the Saints failed to have a winning record in a decade.
You know, the New Orleans Saints were awful for years. I think Archie was there 11 years, and their best record was 8-8.
Well, Archie Manning was the greatest losing quarterback I've ever seen. I mean, if he had played on the Pittsburgh Steelers and Terry Bradshaw had played on the New Orleans Saints, never would have heard Terry Bradshaw and Archie Manning be in the Hall of Fame.
I was 8 years old when he retired, but I just have so much respect for the player that he was, certainly, but just for the person that he was.
Peyton Manning was born in March of 1976, the second of 3 boys. He and his brothers, Cooper and Eli, were the beneficiaries of an especially caring father who had experienced an unforgettable loss.
One of the great tragedies of Archie's life is that when he was a student at Ole Miss, he came home to find his father dead. His father had committed suicide.
Mr. Manning came home and propped up a shotgun in the bedroom and turned it on himself and killed himself. And Archie was the first one home and saw it. And of course he wanted to keep his mother away from it. So he literally had to clean up after the suicide. Archie said that one of the things he immediately remembered was that his father had never told him he loved him.
It's kind of an underlying thing that everyone who knows Archie feels that Archie's way he's raised his kids really emanated from that horrible tragedy of his father.
The fact that he didn't have his father around for such a big part of his life, he was always going to be around for us.
We hugged a lot, we wrestled a lot, and but we kissed and hugged and told each other we loved each other.
He always said, "Don't ever get too old to hug me." And you know, we still give Dad a hug all the time. And don't get too cool to say that you love me.
In contrast to the rural insularity of Archie's native Mississippi Delta, his sons grew up in the culturally diverse Garden District of New Orleans, where best-selling Gothic novelist Anne Rice was a neighbor.
What he got to see were these crazy tourists coming in dressed like vampires standing in front of her house. Hundreds every day who would stand in front of his house and gawk at it.
We were playing most of the time anyway, but certainly when they walked by, it was always time maybe to throw the deep pass.
We'd be in the front yard playing, and he was showing off his 5-step drop at the age of 5.
They had these plans pretty early on, you know, that they wanted to play ball, and they played a lot. Reflecting on it now, I'm pretty sure they had some pretty big aspirations of moving on.
Cooper deserves a lot of credit. He's the brother that we don't hear about. Cooper pushed him, challenged him, embarrassed him. He showed him what it feels like to lose.
They're 2 years apart. The one-on-one basketball games got intense. Also, they break into a fight, and I'd be the one running upstairs screaming for mom or dad because I thought they were going to kill each other.
Cooper was a better athlete than he was. I think that little mental challenge of being the middle child and always striving to get their approval still drives him.
At Isidore Newman High School, Peyton won the starting role as quarterback as a sophomore. With Cooper as his primary receiver, the brother took wing.
All those years in the front yard and throwing balls in the street came to count.
Peyton was the best player in the country. He was the best high school football player I'd ever seen. Playing with Cooper, they lit up Louisiana football.
That was fun. Olivia and I have said many times that was our favorite year in football.
That was a magical year. It's probably the nicest Cooper had ever been to Peyton, too. There were some other good receivers, but Cooper wanted to be sure he was going to get the majority of those passes thrown his way.
He was the captain. I was a sophomore. He had his arm around me all the time. At the time, I was very hopeful I was going to be able to do it again.
When Cooper enrolled at Ole Miss in 1992, it was a given in the Manning family and throughout Mississippi that Peyton would join him 2 years later. But that fall, Cooper was diagnosed with spinal stenosis, a congenital disease causing narrowing of the spinal column.
Cooper had to go through surgery that was, quite difficult, and then a long rehabilitation period. And his football days were over.
Oh, it just devastated Peyton. Peyton, at that point, just didn't think life was fair. This is not fair, and that God was kind of really dealing Cooper a bad hand.
That kind of bothers me still, that, why was it him? Why wasn't it me?
There came a point when they thought he might die. Peyton, for the first time, he really realized that there's a whole lot more to life than football.
He told me, as intense as I am, I'm not ever going to change the way I prepare and the way I approach it. I'll always have in the back of my mind that this can be taken away from you in the snap of a finger.
Cooper wrote me a letter. He said, I want to live my dream of playing football through you. It was a true moment, in my life, had an impact on my life.
That illness that Cooper suffered changed Peyton Manning's destiny.
He was going to Ole Miss. He was going to go with Cooper. That was the easy decision. That was the decision everyone expected. I think Peyton realized then, I've got to do something for me now.
My dad said, the minute you tell me and the minute you put the word out, don't you dare look back for 1 second. I'm going to Tennessee, and once I told him last night, right now I'm just kind of singing orange right now. My parents told me that, Peyton, you need to go where you want to go. And once they kind of gave me that green light is when I sort of opened my eyes and opened my mind a little bit that maybe I will go somewhere else.
In January of 1994, Peyton Manning shocked the legions of Ole Miss fans by announcing he would attend SEC rival Tennessee.
That created a very difficult situation for Archie Manning and his wife Olivia. I mean, at the press conference, some people described that to me as though Archie looked like they were going to a funeral.
We had a meeting. So we are not going to let this ruin our life, and we're going to have fun with this. And, 1 out of 2 is not bad. We had fun with it, but it did dictate our daily routine. It was pretty crazy.
We did have, some phone calls and some letters, and it severed some friendships At the time, especially for Archie, it was pretty hurtful.
Archie used to make the trip back and forth to Ole Miss every year. He would stop at a certain place to get gas and get a sandwich or something. And at one point, after the Peyton controversy, the proprietor told him, he said, I'd appreciate you not coming back here anymore. That's how bad it was for a while.
Not only was Archie a football hero here, his mother was the homecoming queen. And it shows you the maturity far beyond his years. You can't be a namby-pamby decision maker and be a good quarterback. You got to make a decision, as George Patton used to say, and do it like hell. And that's Peyton Manning.
As a freshman, Manning was not expected to start for at least a year. But in Tennessee's season opener against UCLA, senior quarterback Jerry Colquitt was injured in the first quarter. When backup Todd Helton proved ineffective, Manning received a shock.
And all of a sudden, Coach says, you're going in. The heart pounding, hair sticking straight up.
Well, there's one pair of sweaty palms right there, number 16.
I think we were both really nervous about it, and Peyton was all excited and enthused.
I remember I was doing like high knees on the sideline, which when have I ever done that ever again?
Here comes Peyton Manning, making his entry as a quarterback for the University of Tennessee. Get used to it.
There was just this buzz among the crowd when Peyton came running out there. Just, wow, Peyton Manning's going to get a chance to play in this first game.
His heart rate has got to be going 90 miles an hour.
I get in there, I say, all right, guys, I know I'm just a freshman, but I can take you down the field right now and score a touchdown and get us back in this game. And Jason Lehman, big left tackle, grabs him by the shoulder and says, hey, freshman, just shut the blank up and call the blank in play. I think I said something like, yes, sir.
Although he played only one series in that game, Manning became Tennessee's starting quarterback a month later.
His whole career got fast-forwarded in one game. Next thing you know, he's in the mix as a freshman. He had to grow up in a hurry.
He just got better and better and better, and by the end of the season, honestly, we were doing most things with a freshman quarterback that we had done in the previous years with a much more veteran quarterback because he understood so much.
They went to Lexington and played Kentucky. Tennessee was a solid favorite to beat a Kentucky team that day, and Kentucky just played their socks off. At a point in the fourth quarter, Peyton was able to kind of rally the team, and we finally beat them. And after the game, like a junior lineman, fourth-year guy came by, and he just said, Mr. Manning, he just wouldn't let us lose. And it kind of made me emotional at the time.
Some play action. Manning up top, left side. Touchdown, Tennessee. He rolls out of the pocket and throws it in the end zone for a touchdown. There's another one for the highlight reel.
In his first 3 seasons, Manning passed for 59 touchdowns. But no deed on the field was more important to the Tennessee faithful than his decision at the end of his junior year.
I made up my mind. I don't expect to ever look back. I'm going to stay at the University of Tennessee.
Peyton Manning could run for governor in the state of Tennessee and win right now. I mean, people in East Tennessee and the state of Tennessee were naming babies after him.
It was a joke in the office. We'd look through the birth announcements and see how many Peytons we could find, every week. They're Peyton girl babies, Peyton boy babies.
When we were driving down the street and it was named after him, I knew right then he had become the legend at Tennessee that his father was at Ole Miss.
This will be Graham. No, it's Manning on the naked handoff, reverse to the left side. Nobody even knows who's got the ball except Peyton Manning.
In his All-American senior season, Manning threw 37 touchdown passes, leading the Volunteers to an 11-2 record and their first SEC championship in 7 years. He was considered the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy.
When will you find out that you have won or not won the Heisman Trophy?
It's Saturday night, and I'm not nervous at all. I'm kind of anxious to get it over with. People have been asking me about it for the past 3 years. I'm kind of tired of dealing with it.
Yeah.
So.
It is my honor to present the Heisman Memorial Trophy Award and the winner. From Michigan, Charles Woodson.
Woodson, to a lot of voters, including me, became kind of the sexy pick. He wasn't a quarterback. He was a guy that played occasionally on both sides of the ball. He did all these things that made him the more complete football player.
I don't think it's necessarily intended to be a slight to him, but I think he took it that way. It only served to motivate him more I think it just continues to motivate him.
Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf, two stars of this year's draft, certainly the most talked about two quarterbacks in quite a while.
The 1998 draft with Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf as the leading men in this ongoing drama, there were all kinds of things that played into this.
This year, quarterbacks are expected to be the flavor of the day. Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf as the projected first two picks.
Ryan Leaf was the more glamorous of the two guys. Seemed like he had the better upside. There's all these questions about Peyton. Was he too mechanical? Was he going to have a limited future?
Ryan Leaf had a lot of momentum at that time. It was my opinion that Peyton was the finest quarterback to come out of college in many, many years, and probably the most polished quarterback to come out of college ever.
I remember when I came to Indianapolis for a visit, Bill Polian was just gotten there as general manager. I said, well, can I ask you kind of where you are at this point in your evaluation? They said, well, we're just trying to make the decision. I said, well, here's the deal. I said, if you want to draft me, I'd actually like to come here to Indianapolis. But if you don't, then I'm going to kick your ass for the next 15 years.
And of course, that was extremely revealing in and of itself. And at the end, I think I said to him, you want to accept this burden, you know, of being the guy that turns this franchise around? And he said, yes, I do.
He shook my hand and looked me in the eyes with a lot of clarity and strength and a firm handshake and said, I'll win for you. It kind of sent a chill down your spine.
With the first pick of the draft, the Indianapolis Colts select quarterback Peyton Manning.
From day one when he came here, you know, he took every snap in practice, every snap in every game.
Hey, he was going to come in from the first practice and be our starting quarterback. He was going to be the guy. We weren't going to groom him behind anybody. He was the guy right from the get-go.
Think of the pressure that amounts. You know, he's just being cold turkey, said you go out and save the franchise.
But the promise of a rookie saving a team in the NFL proved unrealistic. Pitted against complex defenses in 1998, Peyton Manning threw 28 interceptions as the Colts matched the dismal 3-13 record of their previous season.
Manning's forced to eat it. I think that first year was so frustrating to him in a lot of ways. The speed of the game, even though he had lived it, had seen it his entire life, it was still pretty overwhelming. Throws that he'd always made, all of a sudden we're getting intercepted.
And Manning just picked up his second INT.
You could see that when they put him right in there, that he not necessarily was ready right away.
I wasn't able to play. I'm looking around, and please let Marvin be open because he's the first read, and I don't want to have to figure out who my third read was.
The biggest weakness he has is that he tries too hard. He was trying to force everything, and he threw interceptions. He has it in his mind that everything in that offense revolves around him.
You know, here's the thing with Peyton, and this was frustrating to me. Peyton wants so badly to win. We got to complete this pass. We got to go down there and score. That's kind of his mentality. And sometimes, you know, he made some throws that he shouldn't have made.
I went up to Indy that year. He got beat by the Saints last minute, and I'm staying with Peyton for the next couple of days. He was so miserable to be around. It was not pleasant. And this is my brother. It's just us two. I'm going to Atlanta. I'm going to stay with a buddy. He's like, okay. He was glad to see me go.
I remember walking off the field with him a number of times after a tough game, and he was down. He was depressed. I said, hey, man, I don't care how many interceptions you throw. You are our quarterback.
I think it may have been the most important year of his entire life. You've got to come to grips with who am I and what am I going to do to fix this.
Well, if anyone could do it, Peyton Manning could. He could absorb the frustration and the disappointment and the embarrassment because he was so confident. He was so sure that he ultimately would become an outstanding performer.
It was a year where you could see so much hope. I remember one of the great games was out in San Francisco where him and Steve Young had just a gunslinger battle. It was back and forth. Everyone knew. I mean, you could see what the future was with this guy.
A big piece of Manning's future took shape the next season when the Colts reversed their fortunes with a 13-3 record, the greatest turnaround in NFL history.
Marvin Harrison, Andrew James, all of a sudden this was an offense that had come together and was just blowing other teams up.
We can go out there and run pretty much the whole offense without, verbally communicating. It's just something that, we have a knack for one another and to know that we're both on the same page most of the time.
Manning looks to throw to Marvin down the middle. He's got it.
3-13 to 13-3. It made everybody giddy. And it made everybody finally begin to realize that, A, Peyton was everything that they'd hoped, and B, that the franchise was truly getting on solid ground.
I don't know if the Indianapolis Colts would still be in Indianapolis if Peyton Manning hadn't come along. I mean, this was as sad sack franchises go.
Years ago, you would see jerseys of other teams sprinkled throughout the tailgating area. Now, you don't see anything but Colts jerseys here. People here have embraced the Colts. They love the Colts, and I think Peyton Manning is a reason for that.
Within 2 years, he had them becoming a force in the National Football League. Now you're talking about having the best quarterback in football.
Peyton Manning can tell you every coverage that any defensive coordinator has ever imagined. But you ask him to turn a lawnmower on or scramble some eggs, anything as basic as that, he doesn't have a clue how to do it. Because Peyton, that's not important to him.
I don't know if he knows how to work a washing machine or not. He has no sense of direction also. He's always having to call people.
This is a man whose mother had to take photos of outfits for him so he knew what would match.
He is a hokey country boy is what he is, and he doesn't change it for anything. Guys will give him all kinds of grief about wearing grandpa's clothes, and he's wearing shirts that went out in the 70s, and he's rocking them.
We give him a hard time. He usually wears tight jeans and cowboy boots. It seems like the guy's making so much money, he could find somebody to help him dress.
Help was on the way. In March of 2001, Peyton Manning married his college sweetheart, Ashley Thompson.
The greatest thing about Ashley is how she recognizes his intensity and his focus and allows him to do that during football. And it's probably not always easy on her.
It's just nice because just to have somebody to come home and talk to and vent a little bit if you have to, and just even if she doesn't say anything back, just kind of listens. Ashley has really come in and done a lot of things for Peyton. I think emotionally, I think Ashley has helped Peyton with his patience and understanding and dealing with people. They both thrive off each other's personalities.
In 1999, Manning started the Payback Foundation, a charity that provides opportunities for children at risk.
He had a great family. He's got a great mom and dad, 2 brothers. What he's trying to do for the kids, he's trying to give them a little bit of that life.
I think he truly believes, that adage, to whom, much is given, much is expected. There's a spiritual element to it for him. That's part of the requirement for a Manning.
I'm not sure what I was put on this earth to do, but I know right now I do have an opportunity to have a platform and to make an impact on people. And through my foundation, I'm helping a lot of young people, and that makes me feel good.
We have a lot of parents that will bring their kids to practice or bring their kids to the games, and if the kid says, well, I want to be like Peyton Manning, the parents are happy about that.
Peyton, in his heart, wants to be known as 2 things: a hard-working and valiant football player and a good person.
His image has to be important to him, and he doesn't want to bring shame to his family. He doesn't want to bring shame to his teammates. And he's been given this amazing opportunity. He's Peyton Manning.
The Manning name in New Orleans is a pretty big deal. Growing up, the Manning boys, they carried that name with them, knowing that people were watching, and there's Archie's kid. You had to kind of watch yourself and not be quite so cocky because there were eyes on you. You felt a little pressure of just not embarrassing him.
Manning's wholesome image took a hit when an assistant Tennessee trainer filed a sexual harassment suit against the university that included more than 30 other complaints. She claimed Manning pulled down his shorts and placed his naked buttocks in her face in 1996 while she was examining his foot in the locker room.
It became a pretty significant deal, and nobody wanted to believe it. And there was a little bit of, I can't believe Peyton Manning would do something like that. This was Mr. Clean.
A lot of people look at that and say, this was about what Peyton Manning did, about a mooning incident in the training room. In fact, this was about a large number of incidents that the trainer had and issues she'd had with university officials, administrators, about how she was treated.
In 1997, the university settled for $300,000. But 3 years later, in a father-son biography, Manning presented his version of the incident, claiming he was mooning another athlete and characterizing the trainer as having had a, quote, vulgar mouth. She sued again, this time for defamation of character. The matter was settled in 2003. The details were sealed by the court.
Why do you bring that back up? I think he just, for whatever reason, wanted to have the last say on it, and then it turned out to not be the last say, and it kind of blew up on him.
He wants to be the person that people believe him to be. He works very, very hard at doing that.
We talk about those kind of things and what's perception and what's reality, but I think every negative that's brought about him, he kind of uses that as fuel for the fire inside him.
I love the fans, you know, on the call-in shows or the ones that just approach you on the street. I say, I love that Peyton Manning, but you know, he can't win the big game, can he?
He was so good, and he's supposed to be so good, that when he does good things, it's not a surprise. If he does bad things, now that's a shock. What are the most memorable games of Peyton Manning's college career? The ones he lost to Florida.
Despite amassing a 39-6 record as a starter at Tennessee, Peyton Manning went winless in his 3 starts against Florida.
People made a big deal. He's going to beat Florida, whatnot. Golly, I tried my best. I had my window and just didn't do it.
People don't realize that Bob Stoops was the defensive coordinator for Steve Spurrier back then, and yet Peyton Manning competed his rear end off against those guys.
The truth is that during those 3 games, Florida was just a little bit better.
It carried into pro ball. Then they start saying he can't win a playoff game. Well, he couldn't beat Florida and he couldn't win a playoff game. And I'm just saying, well, what are we coming to here?
I think he carries a lot of pressure at crunch time. There are times, whether it was at Tennessee or at times with the Colts, that when he got into a big game, he would put so much importance on him that I don't think he played as well as he could have played. You see all the gesticulations at the line of scrimmage, and he looks like an aerobics instructor on crack.
Peyton Manning's always like, whoa, you know, the whirly birds. He's like Henry Mancini on the 78 RPMs, you know, over here, yeah.
I was playing for Baltimore in 2002. I remember just watching him just do all that stuff, and I was like, man, what is this guy doing? You know, it just looks so funny. It's like, just get up there and run the play.
When you make him use his feet as much as he's using his brain, maybe it slows down the whole computer matrix just a little bit. You can get the old overanalysis leads to paralysis syndrome.
Here's Manning back to throw and hit, and the ball's loose.
When they didn't go far in the playoffs, they didn't do well, he was very frustrated. I think he was getting to the point where he wasn't enjoying being a quarterback anymore.
In his second and third seasons, Manning often performed brilliantly, passing for 59 touchdowns as he led the Colts to the playoffs. But in each postseason, he could not get them past the first round. Then, in 2001, frustration boiled over when he threw 4 interceptions in a 40-21 loss to San Francisco.
And that was a disgraceful performance, in my opinion. We threw that game. We gave it away.
Peyton had just thrown the ball all over the lot at the Dome. And Jim Mora, God bless him, I mean, he'll give you some sound bites.
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me?
Peyton doesn't mind being told that he played poorly. He criticizes himself more harshly than anybody in the media could, but he does not like to be embarrassed.
Don't throw the damn ball to somebody else. Throw it to our guys.
And he went off on Jim Mora.
To be called out in front of the whole country, you damn right it bothers me. The thing about Coach Mora is that he and I were similar in a lot of ways. Looking back on it, I wish I wouldn't have said anything, but it just boiled over inside of me.
We've had our disagreements. You know, we've yelled at each other on the practice field and things like that. We're both very intense, both very competitive. He's not afraid to express himself, and I'm not either. So as a result, you know, we clashed a little bit.
After the Colts finished 6-10, Jim Mora was fired.
I can't tell you what an impact that had on me as far as just reinforcing the fact that, hey, Peyton, people's jobs are based on how you play. Or if I would have played better in my 4th year, then maybe Jim Mora wouldn't have gotten fired.
In 2002, under new head coach Tony Dungy, Indianapolis made the playoffs, but were buried by the Jets 41-0 in the first round. Manning, 0-3 in the postseason, took fire from an unexpected source, Colts kicker Mike Vanderjagt.
I'm like, God, Peyton, come on, show some enthusiasm. You're the quarterback. We need to win this game. And I just don't see it from him. Some guys have it, some guys don't.
Peyton put his heart and soul on the line for this football team, for this franchise for a long time, and I think the Mike Vanderjagt words, the more he thought about them, the more they really hurt his heart.
Peyton's always been told he's great. Because Peyton's good qualities have been amplified, I think he sometimes believes he might be immune to criticism, or should be.
I'm out of my 3rd Pro Bowl. I'm about to go in and throw a touchdown to Jerry Rice. We're honoring the Hall of Fame. We're talking about our idiot kicker who got liquored up and ran his mouth off.
And everybody just went.
I talked to Vanderjagt. According to him, he wasn't drunk. And he doesn't drink that much. He voiced an opinion, which he shouldn't have. And Peyton, I think, defending his football team, reacted to it.
But I was kind of out there in the middle of the storm and just, you know, responded and got some things off my chest. And I probably could have handled them better right there at the particular time. But however it gets handled, it gets ended right there.
Peyton Manning is not going to get shown up. I promise you that. You don't want to get on his bad side. He's not beyond holding a grudge. If you ever say something that that he does not agree with, or you attack him, he'll never forget it.
Peyton still has not won the big one yet. Because if you're Peyton Manning, there are no big regular season games. He has to win a playoff game.
After firing off a record 5th straight year with more than 4,000 passing yards and taking the Colts to a division title in 2003, Peyton Manning led them into the playoffs against the Broncos, who had crushed Indianapolis 2 weeks earlier.
Peyton kept saying, I'm 0 for 3, I'm 0 for 3, it's really no big deal. It was a big deal.
And just in his voice, you could tell how determined he was. And even though he never mentioned it about, you know, the criticism, not winning the big one, I know it was in his mind, and I know that was part of his motivation.
Back to throw, lost it down the middle, Stokely's got it to 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown, Brandon Stokely!
He came out that first drive, Colts went down and scored, and all of a sudden you could see the relief a little bit. You just saw the smile getting bigger and bigger as the game went on.
Snap is to Peyton. Steps up in the pocket, throws downfield, Marvin's got it, touchdown! 20-3 Colts!
I think he really made that effort to loosen up a little bit, try to have a little more fun with it, and I think his teammates saw it and appreciated it.
In a 41-10 payback of Denver, Manning connected on 22 of 26 passes for 377 yards and 5 touchdowns, gaining a perfect quarterback rating.
Peyton, finally a playoff win. How good does it feel?
It does feel good, Ron. It certainly does, because it's been a little monkey there. I think my parents were relieved, and people probably that knew me were relieved that they won't say that anymore, that Peyton can't win a playoff game.
After dispatching the Chiefs 38-31, the Colts faced the Patriots, who stood between them and the Super Bowl.
Snap to Manning, standing in there, fires to the right, intercepted, Taiwan! 4 interceptions off Manning this afternoon.
The dream died 24-14.
After the game against New England was as downcast as I've ever seen him, as high as he was after Denver. You just want to take his shoelaces away after that New England game, because he knew in his heart of hearts that he didn't play well.
I remember trying to call him, trying to console him, wouldn't answer his phone. He went in the woods for about 2 weeks and went and hunted. Didn't want to talk to anybody, didn't want to be around anybody.
Despite his frustration, Manning shared MVP honors with the Titans' Steve McNair. Then in 2004, after signing for $98 million over 7 years, the hard-driving, self-critical perfectionist went on a career tear, not missing a start in his 7th straight season Manning achieved the highest quarterback rating in NFL history, passing for more than 4,500 yards and eclipsing Dan Marino's record of 48 touchdown passes.
Snap is to Peyton. Protection stays in. He throws to Stokely.
But after winning his second MVP award, Manning again lost to the Patriots in the playoffs. He opened the 2005 season by leading the Colts to 13 straight wins, only to be upset by the Steelers in the postseason.
You look at this football game, you come away with one thing. The Pittsburgh Steelers outplayed the Indianapolis Colts today. The Colts just couldn't get anything done.
The Colts went 12-4 in 2006 and won their first two playoff games. They then faced the Patriots for the AFC title. Manning's prospects for redemption looked bleak as Indianapolis trailed 21-3 in the second quarter.
Indy is down 18 points. They're dead. Here we go again. Manning's failed again. Colts have failed again. Then all of a sudden,
Manning, quarterback sneak. Did he get there? Touchdown! Manning looks for Dan Klecko. He's got it. Touchdown! Manning will give it to Joseph right up the middle. Touchdown! He ran right up the middle and scores with a minute left.
The Colts broke through, winning 38-34.
Do you believe it? The Colts are headed to the Super Bowl. Peyton Manning exercises demons.
I think it was a big step for all of us, but for Peyton in particular, he had taken so much flack for the games in New England.
On February 4, 2007, Manning led the Colts onto a rain-soaked field in Miami to battle the NFC champion Bears.
Peyton takes the snap, sets up, steps up in the pocket, rolls away, throws one downfield. Reggie's there, got it to 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown, Reggie Wayne.
He just kept feeding what he felt like would win. If he felt like he had to throw the ball, he would do it. If he had to run it, he would run it. He just played with what we had, and he trusted in the team concept.
Peyton Manning was always the genius solo artist. But when he took a step back and said, I don't need to be the solo artist, I'm going to be the maestro. I'm going to be the conductor of this orchestra. And that was the key down the stretch to his winning the Super Bowl.
The game's going to be over. 2-1. The Colts are world champions.
Throwing for 247 yards and a touchdown, Manning was voted MVP of Super Bowl 41. He had delivered the big one, not only for his team, but for himself and his family.
Who doesn't play the game to say, I'm on a world champion? Who doesn't play in order to get a ring? And for him, I think it just takes a really difficult part of his life and sets it aside.
he doesn't have to listen to people who say things like, Peyton Manning can't win the big one. That's over. That's done. That's over with. It's good for Peyton, and it's good for the rest of the world, too, because you know what? Who needs to hear that anymore?
He enjoys where he is in life right now. He and his wife, his family, everybody. I mean, I think they're just a really nice place in their life to enjoy what's happening in his NFL career.
I think people in New Orleans are fascinated watching this guy and what he's made of his life. He was one of them. He was a little kid playing out in the yard. He was Archie's little boy. He made himself into a great football player. He did it with the force of his will, which is greater than most.